Awesome. Okay, I'm about to share on my screen here. Continue here, and as I do share, so welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to Give to Get. This is a coaching session with Stefan Neff. Let's gonna do a share here. Perfect. So just welcome everyone. And who is Stefan? So I'm going to scroll down as I talk here. So Stefan was born and raised in Langley, British Columbia. And Stefan is married with children. You can see I'm a big fan of married with children there. So as I grow up, so I got one son that's almost 20 and another one that's almost 30. So that's my family. And Stefan has had drug and alcohol addictions for 35 years until he found a solution that worked, and it was called SMART recovery. So self-management and recovery training based on science using cognitive behavior therapy, means CBT,
Turn this
and
off?
rational emotive behavior therapy tools that work. So yeah, I hear somebody coming in. So welcome, welcome. And so I'm just about to start. I'm just doing an intro of who I am. So that's my name is Stefan Neff. So Stefan became a regional coordinator for SMART Recovery in British Columbia in 2018. He supports over 300 trained SMART Recovery facilitators in the BC region. Then Stefan provides online SMART recovery meetings to thousands of individuals around British Columbia. Personally, I host 4 meetings a week from Langley all the way up to Whistler area. So that's what I do. And there's about 25 different meetings that I look after with the help of other facilitators. So some of the guidelines in this coaching this session is whatever is shared here stays here. This is one very important process that I really love, is the safe place for individuals to share. So we're going to get started. So I do have some questions. I'm going to stop sharing for a second here, and then I'm going to pull up another slide as I get prepared here. All right. Usually I ask these topic questions. Here they are here. Is, for example, what brought you here today to this coaching session? Maybe what challenges or topics would you like to work on during this coaching session? What events or situation may have caused an upset feeling that may have led to an unwanted behavior in the past 30 days? Or also too, maybe what wins or successes would you like to share in today's session? So I'm going to start sharing. If you want me to pull that back up, I'd be absolutely super grateful. So welcome everyone. We have I have another. Is it Steph?
Steph, yep. Steph's on the
Awesome.
line.
Welcome, Steph. And what was the other
Em-
name?
Emmylou's on the line, and
Emily.
I'm on the line as well too, Stefan.
Cool.
For me, Stefan,
Yep.
I believe that addiction is a major problem in our society. I believe that our society in general is getting more comfortable with the concept of people that struggle with addiction. So it is becoming more of, I'll say, a day-to-day topic. And I think probably all of us know somebody in our life that struggles with some form of addiction. So for me today, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you join as one of our, I'll say, coaches, mentors, and subject matter experts going forward, is really to get that kind of conversation out more. Personally, for myself too, I want to learn about addiction and addictions in terms of how it impacts an individual, so that I can help anybody that I come in contact with or that's in my social network who is struggling. How can I be more empathetic? How can I be more understanding? How can I be more knowledgeable? How can I understand their situation, that I can be more specific with even hands-on help or hands-on support? So I'm really here today wanting to learn from a perspective of how can I help people that struggle with addiction? How can I support them? What are some of the things that I could be saying? What are some of the things that I shouldn't be saying? Because if you don't know, you don't know.
Mm.
And so I really want to dive into that world of I don't know what I don't know around addiction.
Great topic, Bruce. And so the one thing that with Smart Recovery and myself too is the stereotypical labeling. And this is one thing that's being shifted towards um, that labeling word, for example, addict, druggie, for example. With the program that I've been really advocating for, as being Smart Recovery, is we change the vocabulary. We use unwanted behaviors because behaviors can be changed through, for example, a new way of thinking, a
Right.
new way of feeling, ultimately ultimately a new way of behaving. So
Correct.
this is one of those key points where CBT and rationally emotive behavior comes in. And this is what I train. For example, train specialized tools to help an individual see addiction in a different way, and their own thoughts in a different way, and their own feelings in a different way. So this is how I support individuals on that path of recovery.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Looking forward to learning that.
So, like I said, I would love to hear from Steph. So, what brought you here today? Is there a certain topic or um, uh, something that you would like to share?
For me, it was the motivation to keep motivated. I'm entering a new chapter in my life, and I just want to make sure that I have the knowledge and I stay motivated in order to get to the next level.
Okay, so something to keep you motivated.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very, very good. I wrote that down because there's a great tool that can help individuals with motivation. So, I would love to do a tool with you as well. But first of all, I would love to ask also, is it Emmylou?
Emmalou.
Emmylou, Emmylou.
Yes,
So,
yes.
go ahead, Emmylou.
I would, as Bruce expressed, I would like to understand more about it and how I can support others.
Okay, awesome. So how can you support others?
Even to that point, and given the topic today, Stefan, that we're talking about in dealing with the subject of addiction, I've always said motivation is fascinating, and if you understand somebody's motivation, you understand the person better. So that's another aspect for me personally is, what is the motive and what is the underlying, or what I'll say, the overpowering motive or motives that a lot of people with addiction challenges, I'll say, manage, suffer, deal with, in terms of how they deal with their motives as well too. So I'd like to learn more about that today as well.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back to Steph. And so, Steph, what is it that you need motivation? What was your goal? What is your motivation to? Means your end result that you want to look for. Is it just motivation itself, or is there a key component that you're looking for?
So I recently sold my business. I was in business for 9 years, and I feel like after I'm going to say like 7, 8 years, I started losing that vision or that motivation that I had in my head when I first started my business. And so now I decided to take a leap of faith and change my life all around. But I just want to make sure that I don't fall back into the routine and into the not wanting not that I don't want it, but just that routine of like everyday life and not reaching my goal or not having those breakthroughs that are going to get me to the ultimate success that I want in my life.
So you're looking for example, a different pathway. For example, because with addictions, with individuals, they may be in the fog. For example, they may be struggling where they don't have the passion or the drive at this time to find what they're passionate about or what their values are. So I would like to ask you this question: have you written down, for example, what's most important to you? A list of, say, for example, 8 to 10 things. And this is it's called an HOV, hierarchy of values. So what do you value the most? Can you write down, say, for example, I would say 8 to 10 right now, and everybody too as well. So this is a absolutely phenomenal tool. It's called the HOV, the hierarchy of values. So Steph, what do you value the most? If you can write down, say, 5 or 6 right now.
Okay. Well, I could tell you from the top of my head which ones I do value the most, which
Sure.
is capacity, stability, and freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah.
And what was the
And of
first
course,
one?
family.
Family. Now I'd like to ask you a question because you gave me 3 of them. Okay. Where does yourself fit in there?
Good question.
A very good question.
I don't know.
Because
I guess for myself too.
okay, so this is what oftentimes people may forget about, because the most things that they value are outside of themselves. But when it goes back into themselves, who's the most important person that can make me happy? It's me. So who's the most important person that can make you happy? You list, right. So you listed off family, stability, and what was the other one you said? You said friends?
Freedom.
Freedom. Okay, freedom. So when it comes back to self, and I ask individuals with addictions. So I asked them, I said, well, when it comes down to addictions, where does your addiction sit? So it's the same kind of question. And so I ask them, and they often say, oh, I never thought as addictions as a value. Well, I said, okay, if we put, oftentimes people forget is addictions is actually in the very top. Everything down below is secondary, because if we go towards addictions means number 1, then everything else falls into place.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
But if we go the other way around and go sobriety means self comes first, then all of a sudden it starts to change until they start to work on themselves, work on their other values. So when I asked you that question, Steph, where do you fit in that list? And you said, you thought about it. So where does it fit?
I don't feel like it's searching any of them, right? Because, I mean, I want all 3 of them. I work hard and I want to be there for my family if they ever need anything. But I'm not thinking about myself in that one. And then stability kind of falls into the same one. It's for my family. And then I guess in the freedom, maybe like in the freedom, that's the closest I can fall in, because I want to be free and be able to do as I please, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that great. So that I'm still going to hone back to the same point is, if, for example, we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the most important thing you said is family. Okay. So this is an analogy that Smart Recovery uses, or I use quite often. It's called the oxygen mask. So if you put your oxygen mask, you know the oxygen mask from the airplane, it drops down when you're flying if something happens. So who would you put the oxygen mask on first? Would you put it on your family first?
No, I put it, well, I myself.
Right. Put it on yourself. So that's where the question comes when you put yourself at the top of the value, on the top of the list, because you're putting the mask on yourself first. So this is the question. This is why I'm asking you these questions, because if it comes from self first, does that sound selfish to you? To put yourself first?
No,
I love it. Good for you. Good answer. So putting, and this is oftentimes people don't forget, because it's oftentimes you're on top. So for you said, because you said 7 years that you've been you had a business, you sold it, and now you're looking for motivation for change.
Yeah. Well, no, I know, like I know what I want, and I have a plan. I just I want to make sure I go stick with it and not fall back or not lose motivation like along the way.
So do you, for example, so you wake up first thing in the morning. So the question is to Steph, What drives you first thing in the morning when you wake up? For me personally, it's smart recovery that drives me. For example, I think about smart recovery and that drives me in the morning. So what drives you first thing in the morning? What do you think about?
Um, First thing in the morning, I always think about health. Honestly, like I do. Yeah, I guess like health more than anything.
So when you, for example, when you first wake up in the morning, what you're thinking about expands. So what you're thinking about expands. So if you're thinking about your, for example, motivation means your health, means your family, means yourself. When you first wake up in the morning, is write down exactly what you want to do. Do you have a list of things you want to do towards your motivation? What would your
Like
list?
a daily routine.
One more time, Steph.
Do you say like a daily routine that I do every day?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly.
I have a morning like routine that I do. I wake up. I do my best to meditate every day. Then I get up, work, go to the gym, come back, and then just try to listen to something like that motivates me, like podcast or something.
Well, Steph, it does sound like you're on track, for example, for that motivation. Is there just something that's missing? What is missing? What do you believe? What is missing?
Um, I don't know. I guess just a purpose, maybe like the lack of clarity on purpose.
Okay. So have you, and that's a key component, I would say. What is your purpose? Have you written down for example, what you're passionate about? You said what your values are, and so with your values, so what comes next when it comes down to your purpose?
Um, I feel like that's something that I'm still like in the process of figuring out. That like I do love to like inspire others and like I see myself also like helping our youth and stuff like that. I just need to find like a specific way on how to do so.
Okay. Inspire others. So with your purpose, because you're giving me exactly the keys. So your purpose is to inspire others. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, I guess it's just a how, I guess, in a way. Yeah.
The how. Okay. Well, you got me some good. So the how, but how about the be? How can you be?
What was that?
The be factor. Be.
Yeah.
So what is
What
the so it means be the person you were meant to be. So what would that look like? Be the person you were meant to be to inspire others.
Yeah, that's where I guess I need help like clarifying because I know like I want to like reach a certain level of success myself before I'm able to like tell others like how to live their life or what they should do. Like I want to be able to have like a certain I guess like status I guess in my professional life and my and also like more knowledge in order to be like, all right, this is what you gotta do or this is how I would do it, you know?
Absolutely. With knowledge comes a lot of, for example, it's great to have knowledge, but if we have lots of knowledge, but if we don't implement that, what happens to that knowledge if it's not implemented into a purpose or a mission or a vision? What happens to that?
It dies.
Right. So for example, taking action would taking action like tomorrow on your writing down your purpose, would that be a great plan towards your motivation? I'm talking about more towards your motivation.
I feel like that would help a lot.
Cool. So what time tomorrow are you going to start, Steph?
Um, in the morning, probably start tonight actually.
Awesome.
After this call.
Good for you, Steph. Awesome. Awesome. Seems like you got some motivation going on now. So that's awesome, Steph. Okay, cool. Yes, yes, you're all motivated, Steph.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty fired up right now.
Cool, cool. Awesome. I'm super grateful for you, Steph. Awesome. And so how can somebody hold you accountable? Would you hold yourself accountable or do you have somebody that can hold you accountable?
I think I could definitely. I mean, it'd be nice to have somebody hold me accountable, but I'm at that point where I'm like, either like I have to go all in, or either I stay where I'm at or I go all in. So I feel like I'm in that phase where I'm just like taking big steps in my life in order to get to the next level.
Yeah, because it sounds like you already have a structure. You got your plan in the morning. You do your exercising. You do your health benefits. You're doing your family stuff, and you are motivated. It's just now you can create that purpose tonight. You said, but having somebody hold you accountable. If you are self motivated, that's awesome. But the first question you asked today was to build and maintain motivation for change.
Right.
So
Yeah. Like I don't want to be like my biggest problem is like right now I feel motivated, and tomorrow I'll be like, oh my god, like you know what, I'm gonna go hang out with my family, and then I'll just put this off tomorrow, and then that's like I guess my biggest conflict.
procrastination.
Is that what it is?
Procrastination. We all have. I'm going to ask everybody: is that kind of normal to a certain degree to procrastinate? Excluding Bruce? No, I'm kidding, Bruce. We all have that procrastination within ourselves. But building motivation towards changing that as well. So Steph, great. So looks like it was a Stefan show today. So for example, so I would love to ask, for example, we hear Mauro's here. So I haven't asked Mauro. Is it Mauro?
Yep,
Mauro.
that's Moore's name. Yep.
Cool. So I like to hear what brought Mauro here today too as well. You chimed in a little bit later. For example, these were the questions I asked. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen one more time. For example, what brought you here today? What challenges or topics would you like to work on during this coaching session?
Sorry, I'm actually driving, so I'm just listening.
Oh, you're just listening. All right, Mauro. Okay,
Yes.
cool. Awesome. So you're just
So
listening.
I won't be able to read those, and I can answer any other question.
Awesome. So, well, the simple question is, what brought you here today? If you can answer that.
I wanted to hear more about what you had to say.
Okay. Thanks, Mauro. Awesome. So let's go back to, for example, what Emily was asking this question about how to support others with addictions. So Emily, are you there? And by the way, Steph.
Yeah, I just had to unmute.
Thank you, Emily. Is it Emily?
Emily.
Okay. So the question is, Emily, is there somebody in your life or somebody surrounding you that may have addictions, or you just in general want to support individuals?
In general, I worked for 8.5 years as a teacher in a residential treatment facility for youth at risk, and some of them were struggling with addictions. I'm a family or parenting coach, and I know it can be anything from, eating. People can develop all kinds of unhealthy habits with eating.
Absolutely. So how can you support individuals? And this is one of those questions I ask myself too, with an individual with addiction. So how can I support individuals? And when I found out about S.M.A.R.T recovery and the science-based tools, I gravitated towards it because for me, there was no more stigma. There was no more labeling. For example, there was tangible tools to help individuals think differently. So would it be beneficial for you to learn some of the tangible tools to help maybe your community or somebody in your reach, I would say.
Definitely.
So there's one tool I would love to share. It's called the ABC tool of rational emotive behavior therapy. Are you okay with that, Emily?
Sure.
Okay, so how it works, and I will just give me a second while I pull something up here. While I gravitate towards. Just give me a second, Bruce, while I get this prepared. It'll just take me a few seconds as I'm pulling up from the. And there's one thing about the S.M.A.R.T Recovery website. It has absolutely phenomenal fillable PDF file tools that for individuals that are not able to attend meetings. And I'm going to share my screen now because I'm pulled up. And as we were talking, Bruce, and everybody, I went onto the website and I pulled up this. It's called the ABC tool, and this is a fillable tool. For example, so A stands for the activating event, maybe a situation that happened in their lives. For example, maybe it could have been a spouse. They got in an argument, for example. So the activating event is they got in an argument with their wife. So they would put spouse, okay, for example. And so then they would go to it's called the C, the consequence of my irrational belief. So consequence is the emotional feeling that I created within my own thoughts, means my own body feelings. So from that argument, the activating event means I felt, it could be, for me, I felt upset, for example, or frustrated, okay? Frustrated. Then from that, the consequence, then they moved into what was my irrational belief? What was my belief about the activating event? Means the argument with my spouse. So then I would go, I'd said something wrong, or they, for example, my spouse shouldn't have overreacted like that. So then what we do is we go to the dispute my irrational belief, disputing it, asking yourself, where is it written in stone? Where is it written in stone that my wife is not allowed to get upset? Or in whatever case the event may have been, it means whatever belief it may have been. So then we start to go from the dispute. So where is it written? Is it actually true? Is that a true statement that I'm telling myself about my belief? Then when we go to the E, now we go to the effective new change. And this is this one here. We go, what can I think about? What can I think about when it comes down to a change, a new emotional feeling, maybe something I could be saying differently to myself? So we start to analyze and actually see where our irrational beliefs are coming from. So when we start to change that, we can feel differently about the event from the very beginning, the argument that we had. Well, you know what? I could have not have drunk, for example, before I came home from work. That may have been the reason why she was upset, for example. So I could have went, for example, started to communicate. And then I start to feel much differently because I'm communicating with my spouse. So this is just a small portion of what the ABC tool is asking yourself, is that belief I'm thinking about the activating event true or not? So I want to stop sharing. So with that tool, Emmylou, this is just one tool that you can that I help individuals see things differently when it comes down to their emotional feelings, when they can start to dispute their irrational beliefs, and then they can effectively have a new way of thinking, a new feeling, or a new activity they could do. So this is the basis of rational emotive behavior therapy, where it changes people's outlooks and their perspectives on life. Does that make sense, Emmylou?
Yes, it does.
I use this tool, Emmylou and Steph and Bruce. I use this tool every single day when there's some emotional upset or some thought that's in my mind. I'm a big advocate of this one, and this is just one tool. So, and I did the hierarchy of values with Steph. So would that be beneficial to you? For example, you could become a facilitator or share S.M.A.R.T recovery with individuals. Are you living in Toronto area or the Vancouver area or Calgary?
No, I'm actually in the United States.
Okay, cool. There's about 2,000 meetings running weekly in the United States with S.M.A.R.T recovery. So if you do know somebody that's going from youth to families and friends. So we have the youth, families and friends, the individuals with addictions. Also, we also work with the individuals that are in prisons, veterans. So the gamut is quite wide. So It's called Smart Recovery. So you can share with individuals, maybe a youth group, um, maybe become a facilitator yourself, or just go on the website and start learning the tools so you can actually use the tools by helping others. Does that make sense too?
It does. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Awesome. So, any other question? Not about questions, but any thoughts about addictions? Because Bruce, you were mentioning, for example, how the struggles in our community, and more understanding of what addictions, how it can affect our community. You were mentioning in the very
Yeah,
beginning.
really. First of all, just one, how to genuinely understand, I'll say, the situation from the individual's point of view, and then how to empathize with them. I've always believed that empathy is one of the most powerful emotions that we can do with another human being. Um, and and again, in the vernacular, it means putting myself in that person's shoes. If I've never been in that person's shoes, for argument's sake, how can I start to go down that road and become more understanding, become more empathetic, so that, to your point earlier, my language is, I'll say, more supportive than less supportive. My actions, my behaviors towards the individual, with the individual, are more supportive than what I'll say destructive.
Absolutely. And the one thing is, for example, when we start to use those terms, and that it could be destructive, for example, and I've seen this a lot, Bruce, is when somebody says to them, "Oh, you're an addict." They often feel stigmatized, and this is the one thing where, for example, that I am a huge advocate for, is saying, "Oh, you have something with your unwanted addictions." It's a simple word, is unwanted addictions. That the change of vocabulary is one. The empathetic. This is what smart recovery is based on. Bruce, is the
Yep.
is empathy, compassion, for
Right.
example, and we have lots of that in our with our facilitators, with a lot of the. So when you're seeing somebody, it's like they're, for me personally, there isn't something wrong with them. There's actually deep beneath themselves, there is an individual that can change their behaviors and change the way they think about themselves. So it's not like, for example, there's something wrong with them. There's just at this point that there's something their brain in the very beginning stages um, can be changed. So with the empathetic, like you said, or compassion, I use more the compassion, because with the individual with addictions is
Right.
it's for me more compassion. So, but yes,
Okay.
I can understand your empathetic part of it. So when you're talking to an individual, what would you say to an individual, Bruce, that has addictions?
To be perfectly frank, I don't know.
Mm,
I really don't know, because I've never been, I'll say, in that situation from that perspective. Yet I do realize that addictions are becoming more and more part of our society, and so I want to be prepared when and if I'm in that situation. I would almost say too, Stefan, that I've probably been around people who have struggled with, as you say, unwanted behaviors, um, and just probably not aware of them in terms of what the specific unwanted behaviors are, but realizing that they're struggling with something, um, even as much as, I'll say, severe anxiety,
mhm.
but not knowing what's at the root cause, and how to help somebody, I'll say, like that, who the anxiety might be a cause of the unwanted behavior, which might be, quote unquote, part of the addiction.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing it purely as anxiety, not, I'll say, the stepping stones back to what the root issue is.
Right. And that's where, for example, the rational emotive behavior therapy, because oftentimes the anxiety came from original point was there was a situation in their lives that made them, that created this anxiousness feeling. It means a thought, and all of a sudden it goes through the emotions, and then it goes back to the same point again. That belief means self-worth as an individual. Um,
Right.
because there is a starting point. Yeah. So Bruce, for example, asking the right questions, and you've said it so many times before, how can I serve you today? Is
Right.
there, and and asking the motivational questions. So I always write these down. So, for example, uh, the 5 W's in an H with the motivational interview. So, how can I help you today? Is there, for example, um, see, with the individuals that are coming to the Smart Recovery meetings and the meetings, say they're coming for a purpose because they are on the path of recovery. So oftentimes I'll get a phone call, and same as you, Bruce, for example, they just don't know where to go. Like you said, oftentimes, so I just said, so what is your plan for today? Simple question. What is your plan for your sobriety today? But if you don't know if an individual, Bruce, if they don't have addictions, or if they don't want to share because of whatever reason they're
Mhm.
feeling labeled, or they're feeling, I would say, like there's something wrong with me if I do have addictions, and
Right.
that's also a big social, like you said, a social community issue when it comes
Mhm.
down to addictions, because everybody wants to hide because they feel that there's something wrong with them. So the question is, the very first question you ask is, what can you do to serve individuals with addictions?
Okay.
Is to ask them, is there anything I can help you with today? So, so Bruce, because this is a broad question. So, for example, what would you like to help individuals with? Is it to find solutions for them, or find maybe a smart recovery or an AA or a recovery house, or you just want to,
Yeah. One, you know me too, Stefan, as an individual. I always like to help serve people.
yeah,
Um, Tying that back to ultimately what we want to accomplish with the whole Give to Get program is to help people live, as we've said before, a balanced, limit free life, which is, to your point, bring balance into their life spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and financially. And so I'm always going to look at it as, how can I serve you and help you bring balance into your life in what I'll say any one or all of those areas.
right. And so when it comes down to with individuals with addictions, it's starting at the very first point is the acceptance, self acceptance aspect of it. Is
Okay.
is is coming to a meeting, for example, and taking responsibility for the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the first place. And it's up to them. Remember, it's a personal choice to
Right.
change. Personal choice, and this is one thing that Smart Recovery and myself too advocate on, is the power of choice. So the individual has to want to be able to create change. Um, we want to give, we want to serve others, but if they're unwilling to take, I would say, be committed, and this is one of the reasons why they come to, for example, Give to Get
Okay.
in the next little while, is learning the tangible tools, for example, when it comes down to addictions and how to change. So,
Let's even talk about that for a moment then too,
sure,
Stefan, because I agree with you. We all have a power, we all have the power to choose.
yeah,
We all have the power of choice. Even if we quote unquote give that up and say, I have no choice, well, you've just chosen to give it up. You've chosen for somebody else to choose for you.
right,
Uh, and so I can imagine people with, I'll say, addictions struggle with this concept that they even have a choice, as opposed to quote unquote not having a choice because of, I'll say, the unwanted behaviors, because of the addictions. How do you help somebody in that situation, or somebody who has that belief, even get to the point of them, I'll say, realizing and or believing that they do have a choice? They're not tied to this, I'll say, unwanted behavior slash addiction for the
hmm
rest of their life. If they believe they are, how do you help to even start to move that, what I'll say, pendulum back into the middle of, oh, maybe I do have a choice here.
And so this is what I ask individuals. And the first thing is, for example, they ask me, "Oh, so I have no choice." I said, "Well, you have a choice to wake up every single morning. You have a choice to eat food. You have a choice to walk, for example. because I use the motivational interviewing tools, and so I asked them, okay, is that rational about what you're saying, that you do not have choices? So you have choices, for example, to wake up in the morning. So I use the D.I.B.S. It's called disputing irrational belief. It's a short version of the ABC. It's called D.I.B.S. So it's disputing irrational beliefs. And I use the motivational, and this is what we're trained on as smart recovery facilitators, is to ask them those specific questions without being too aggressive to a certain degree. But they do have the power of choice. But if they don't believe it, that they, for example, they say, well, I'm diseased, or it's inherent, or whatever it may be, that's your choice to believe it. But we can also choose, because you chose to have a drink in the first place, you can also choose not to have a drink. And you can choose, for example, to live in sobriety, or you can choose to continue what you're doing. But if you choose to continue what you're doing, is you're continuing with your unwanted behaviors. But if you choose on the other side of it, for example, sobriety, for example, your life may be much different than what it is now.
So when somebody says that, I don't have a choice, it's inherited. It's been in the family for the 3 generations.
Okay.
Do you then ask them a question? How is that belief serving you, or
Yeah.
how is having that belief serving you?
Exactly.
How is that belief moving you forward? Are those the kinds of questions that you would ask?
Absolutely. And absolutely. And then also too, is we have individuals like myself, I share, and I say, well, my dad, if an individual is like myself with 3 individuals from the same family that has addictions, but a father doesn't drink and the mother doesn't drink. So for example, that inherited part of it, for example, for me, it was irrational. For I say I feel it was irrational for me. So if an individual that feels that it's inheritant, means it's a genetic
Mhm.
situation. For example, I'm not going to say to them that that is not true, because then, for example, that is their choice to believe it that way. So because I'm not going to change the way they're thinking, for example, I can't change it. I just got to use the right tools, means to ask them the right questions to motivate them to think differently. Does that make sense to
Right.
you, Bruce? And so
Mhm, mhm.
asking the right questions, for example, it could be to the exactly same point what you said. I said to you, you have a choice to go to the liquor store, or you have a choice to drive by the liquor store. Which one did you choose to do? Well, I choose to go because it was inherited. And I would say the choice is yours. Your father was your father. You're yourself. You have your own mind, your own soul, your own thinking, your own belief systems that ultimately leads to your own beliefs, or sorry, your own behaviors.
Correct.
Right. So
Okay.
you just start to dispute that. It's a process to work through it. Sometimes I get some individuals are just like because they're in the stage of pre-contemplation. So they're I don't know about if that's true or not. So you just got to slowly. It takes time. We can't change a
Mhm.
belief, and we can't change a habit in one session, or
No.
3 sessions, or 5 sessions. I recommended individuals to come to at least minimum 5 to 6 smart recovery meetings, and then I have individuals that have been coming for nearly 2 years to these meetings. Of course, they're living in sobriety because they want to they want to be in the maintenance stage, and that's one of the stages of change, is being in the maintenance stages. They're always using the tools to upgrade themselves and stay connected. So yeah, they're not going to get all the answers in 1 meeting or up to 5 meetings. It takes up to 100 days. I tell individuals it takes up to 100 days to change your neural pathways, and at minimum 100 days.
Right. So then, too, how do you help? Because I would imagine somebody with addictions,
Mhm.
I'll say the very close caregiver, or whoever is in that relationship, a spouse, a brother, a sibling, a very good friend. Um, Obviously, that takes a special individual to help care for that individual. How do you help them when, quote unquote, the caregivers are getting, I'll say, run down, burnt out, overwhelmed, um, even in some cases possibly depressed? How do you support somebody in that role versus somebody who actually has the unwanted behaviors?
Absolutely. Great question, Bruce. And so this is where the families and friends comes in. And so this, the families and friends is not, for example, it's not how to fix our loved ones or to change our loved ones. It all gets directed back to self. So it's about the right communication skills. So for example, I'm going to reach down here is we have the handbook for the families and friends is it has tangible tools for communication, for example, setting boundaries with their loved ones and asking the question, am I actually enabling my loved one or I'm actually supporting them so they can recover on their own? So there's two different things. It's like the, what do you call it? The codependency. Do they need each other? So if the family member leaves, what happens to the individual that has addictions? So we train the loved ones, means it could be a mother, it could be a father, on being able to use the right specialized tools. For example, I shared one with Steph about the auction mask. So especially with the mothers, for example, we asked the mothers, same question. Who do you put the auction mask on first? So we worked through this process, and I have the tool. I was going to share it today. Was the auction mask? Is I asked the mother, would you put the auction mask on your loved one first before yourself? And Bruce, 99% of them say they put on their loved one first.
Right.
And so I asked him. So, for example, if you're unable to, means you're no longer here in this world.
Right.
What happens to your loved one? And they're like, they don't know what to say because they're like, oh, and then we start to work through a process. So putting the auction mask on self first, then you can start to actually do self-care. We talk about self-care more. We talk about what activities that you can start to do on your own. How can you communicate with your loved one using the open-ended questions? For example, what treatment center would you like to go to? Or when is the date that you want to, for example, go to a SMART recovery meeting and ask them the motivational interviewing questions. So we also train the individuals, the family members on that. Also is we do, what's the word I'm thinking of is, just give me a second, Willie, is not building fences, boundaries. So setting boundaries. Yeah. So we train the individuals. It's not putting up a fence and leaving and putting that loved one outside of that fence. It's about how am I going to put the fence towards myself so that I'm staying safe within my own self. So those are just, and we also do have a checklist. For example, are we, for example, covering up for our loved ones when they're boss phones? Or, for example, if the loved one goes to jail or gets a DOI, am I paying their fines? Am I bailing them out of prison or out of jail? Or, for example, am I cleaning up their bedroom if they're kids? Or am I their alarm clock? So that's for example, enabling.
Right.
And we may not be thinking because we're parents or we're loved ones, we want to care for our individuals, but that's a form of enabling. So because an individual has a choice, we work through the individual with the family members directly. And I have a great facilitator. I've been training, but for example, I work with the ones with addictions. I have a great facilitator on Vancouver Island that she's been doing it for almost 10 years now, and she's absolutely phenomenal. And I recommend individuals. I refer family members to go to her.
She focuses on the friends and the family kind of thing.
Yep. And
Got it.
and I've when she goes on holidays, I take over her meetings for a couple weeks while she goes on holidays. And
Is that because of the specialized training, Stefan, or is it that because it's that, I'll say, difficult and or time consuming to work with somebody who has the addiction and also work with somebody who's quote unquote on the family friend side?
Well, the
and
family.
Then we've got about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll wrap up with questions or comments.
Absolutely. So with the families and friends, I was hosting meetings, but I felt because I was the individual with addictions, I was having a challenge. So she was the one with her, for example, her loved one was with addiction, so she could relate with the individuals that are coming to her meetings. And also too, she's so focused on the families and friends, she became the expert in that. For example, myself, I focus about 99% of my time on the ones with addiction. So I became the expert on that aspect of it. So it's the what are you passionate about? And she's super passionate about families and friends. Where I'm passionate about smart recovery, but more for the individuals with addictions. But yes, she has the also she's honed that skill to deal with the families and friends.
Okay,
So yeah,
perfect.
specialized tools. Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you. If you just want to wrap up, then Stefan too, and ask if there's any final comments, any final questions, and then we can go from there.
Super. Thanks, Bruce. You know what? I'm super grateful, and this has been a great 45 minutes, and I'm super grateful for Bruce, for Steph, for bringing that question for motivational interviewing, or sorry, motivation to build and maintain motivation for change. Emily Lou, thank you for also too is asking the questions about how you can support individuals. So as I said, I'm super grateful to be part of this Give to Get, and I'll leave it at that. So it's enough being said. Thanks, Bruce.
Perfect. Let's just, Steph and Emalu, if you want to have any, what I'll say, parting comments and or questions, then we'll give everybody an opportunity before we move on with the session.
No, just thank you. This is good information. Good solid tools.
Awesome. Thanks, Emilu.
Yeah, same. I want to say thank you, Stefan, for the wisdom.
Thank
and
you.
The school.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph.
And I will finish up, Stefan, by saying thank you very much. We welcome you to this being your first session with the Give to Get program on the coach mentoring and expert side of things. And we look for more of these with you. And welcome to the team. It's good to have you. It's nice to be working with you again too, Stefan.
Thanks, Bruce.
All the best.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruce.